Welcome to the Postgame. Welcome to the Postgame. I'm Michael Brooks with Matt Taibbi.
Hi.
Thanks for being here, Matt. Super producer Matt Leck, Chief Economist David Griscom, Super producer David Slavic, and each and every one of you, welcome new patrons. Got a lot to get to, and including, of course, this epic Thomas Friedman reading / gulag sentence. You comfortable with that? You comfortable with the gulag humor?
Yeah, I mean, don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
Whoever came up with that phrase was a real asshole. I just picture some cop like taunting a kid on a nothing drug charge.
I feel like it's don't do the crime if you can't pay for the time.
Don't do the crime if you can't put every single American on the hook for it.
That's right.
For eternity.
While you get a deferred prosecution agreement.
That's an incredible phrase, a deferred prosecution agreement.
Actually, that's my favorite factoid from the whole financial crisis, is that the guys who got caught laundering $850 million for the Sinaloa drug cartel, their punishment was they had to partially forego their bonuses for 5 years.
That would be an awesome thing. Imagine in the company gym. Oh, bad boys. You fucked up.
Yeah. I love the rationale for that, too, because I remember talking with friends about that. Like, well, if you take away their bonuses, the talent is going to go elsewhere. It's like, what? To what?
You mean like, I don't think they're going to want to actually literally work for the Sinaloa cartel. I don't think they're built like that. That was actually funny because I've been talking about Steve Jobs a little bit recently, and it's just because I watched one of these documentaries, and now I've been reading about his daughter's book. And, that's something.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, but what was funny in this documentary I watched, which was not, it was very critical of him and of Apple, but one of the things that was interesting was that he had some type of, I think it was a backdating scandal. You familiar with that one?
No.
They basically, I forgot, they backdated stock purchases, basically, right? So they just, and he did that and for himself and for other executives. And then they did some type of, Al Gore presided over some type of bullshit internal investigation, and he was cleared. And there was a government investigation too. But what was interesting in Steve Jobs' case, and one of the things that makes him like, and I think everybody knows, like, I trash on Elon Musk all the time. Like, I don't hold these figures in any type of esteem. But what they kind of established or hinted to the movie was like, in this case, at least at the time, this literally was a individual that was too big to fail. There was a thought that if this guy goes down, this multi-billion-dollar company is done.
Right.
Because it's not even like it's him at that point,
right,
just as a personal brand.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that was, and it was like, and they kind of made a compelling case that like that was true at the point.
I think you can make the case that there are some of them, certainly the companies you probably couldn't have prosecuted. Like if they had prosecuted Goldman or HSBC, and then followed the actual law, they would have had to lose their licenses, right, which would have caused all these problems. But that doesn't mean you couldn't have prosecuted. Like in the Sinaloa thing, you couldn't have. I mean, what they should have done is they should have gone to the company and said, we want the names of the 25 most responsible people in your company on our desk tomorrow morning, and you have 18 hours to give us that list. And then they should have put those people in jail for 15 years apiece. And that could easily have happened, and there would have been no impact.
And that might have sent a very strong message.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was that HSBC with the Sinaloa cartel?
Yeah.
You're calling from a 760 area code. I want to just say I'm going to do my best as always, but we've kind of reached the can't necessarily always get every phone call threshold, so I do apologize. But we'll do our best. You're calling from a 760 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Michael. It's Kentucky Fried Comrade. How you doing, bud?
Good. How are you? Good to hear from you. Oh, Matt still can't hear.
Doing pretty.
Sorry,
doing
man.
Pretty good.
Go ahead. We're gonna figure out what's going on. Sorry. Just give us 1 second, Matt. No, you're good. Matt Taibbi can't hear, so not sure what's going on. We're gonna. Is there a problem with that?
Was it working today?
Yeah, it worked fine today. Shit.
Can you do his call and just relay it?
Yeah, here. You know what? Ask your question and I'll relay it to Matt. I'm sorry, man. Go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, I've got two very specific things. One is just quickly, a lot of the kind of dumb left people on online are resurgent in a very funny kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
In the specific sense that they're now just yelling at prominent leftist figures who they think might win, and it's over just mindless Twitter stuff.
Right.
And then taking credit when the minorest thing occurs. So Bernie Sanders tweeted something about voter registration today, and
this is a
people
problem.
are doing
Why?
laps, victory laps.
Why is that a problem?
What's that?
And they're upset.
Oh,
they're upset about that.
That's the thing.
Any
well,
luck
no, they're
on
taking
this?
credit for it.
All right. Okay. Look, let me just relay this. I'm sorry because we're still having a problem with Matt hearing it. But are you familiar with this? Nothing. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Are you familiar with this? It's kind of a tendency online. It's kind of we call it the dumb left, sort of kind of I guess people who, it's on the upside pointing out the rot of the whole system, but then on the downside probably drawing false equivalencies and having a kind of emotionally hysterical, conspiratorial kind of politics.
I mean, that's the whole internet,
Not
isn't
really
it?
That is the whole internet. So it's the
Yeah.
left side of that internet. And so there's been this new kind of big focus now because it's almost like these people are addicted to. Does that work?
I think so.
Go ahead, man. Test this out. Kentucky, go ahead.
You hear me, Matt?
I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi.
Take it from here, Kentucky Fried Comrade.
Yeah, it's kind of as you said, there's a kind of there's a level of emotional hysterics to it. There's a level that's just it's a political dead end in its own right. You're not really going to go anywhere with it. It's just it's the equivalent of just screaming into the void.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And anytime somebody comes along too, it's almost then they're now the new thing. It's circling against people like Bernie and AOC.
Right.
Because it's
Andrew Gillum right now.
And Andrew Gillum. And to be fair, I like Andrew Gillum and I support him, but to be fair, I mean, I wouldn't put him in the same category as Bernie as AOC. I mean, I think has a little bit more of a, whatever you want to call it, establishment Democratic, whatever the fuck. But it's all the same thing.
Yeah,
it's
I
all
guess I put criticism
Yeah.
on two different levels of I can be critical of somebody and still say yeah, obviously do vote for them and don't advocate voting third party in swing states and bullshit like that.
I think those people though, it's not just, I think it's their business model depends on constant dissatisfaction with the Democratic Party, which isn't hard to come by because the Democratic Party is a disaster, but it's you can't, their neural networks are not set up for, there might be some things that work.
Right.
With Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie.
Sure.
Because it has to not work.
Right.
To constantly just have grievance politics. And my problem is
Oh, yeah.
well, as I always say, it's if that's your perspective, then you shouldn't even be worrying about electoral politics that much. You should be talking about street movements and other shit outside of the electoral realm.
Right.
If you think it's just done, then I think it's not a totally illegitimate perspective. But why the fuck are you obsessed with elections then?
Yeah. No, it's odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is odd.
Yeah, last thing I want to say really quickly, just as a very quick thing.
Yeah.
I don't do this often, but I'm gonna say Brooksy, TMBS, has really built a kind of beautiful community. Hashtag left is best. It has some of the some of the coolest people, both that I've known online and I've met a few in real life, and they're just really fantastic and organizing, and they're moving in ways that like are actually organizing things in very concrete ways. And
That's amazing.
I love them to death. Shout out to that community.
Awesome. Thank you for that, man. I really appreciate that. And thanks to everybody. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Fucking corporate sellouts. You can't change the Democrat. There's a guy called Jimmy Dore who really is like the sort of like je ne sais quoi. Like he's the person that we're talking about essentially, and he's got this big YouTube empire. And I actually was friendly with him for a minute, and I think we all kind of were friendly with him. He's a funny guy. Is really, I mean, his politics are all like, you know, Trump is president and all of his videos are like, did you see how Rachel Maddow said Bernie Sanders' name in that segment? It's fucking bullshit. That's the Democratic establishment.
Right.
So, you know, it's kind of like grievance anti-politics disguised as leftism.
Right.
And now it's bleeding into like, I don't agree with Tucker, but he's anti-fucking war.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay. Right.
Right.
It's like endlessly bitch about anything. Right. Like not even like the important stuff where you have to call everybody out on war and corporations and so on. But like Kamala Harris wasn't sufficiently enthusiastic enough about a good he literally did a video. This is the last thing I'll say because I think this distills it. He literally did a video that Kamala Harris was not sufficiently excited enough when she announced that she endorsed Medicare for all. That was a video segment. On a face read on Kamala Harris's enthusiasm.
Face read, huh?
Literally. I mean, so that's what people are. And it's one of these things that definitely has currency online. I don't think doesn't seem to be that much in the broader ecosystem, but
right.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I will say about that is that there was a period when I was writing about the financial crisis, and before that about, you know, the Iraq War, the Bush administration, like almost all the hate mail that I got was from right-wing lunatics, right? But since 2015, 2016, it's now swung almost all the way to the other side, where almost all the hate mail that I get is from like centrist Democrats, basically.
Oh, from centrist.
You know what I mean?
The other people that have lost their fucking minds completely. Like,
and so
Hillary Clinton is our god.
Yeah, right. I mean, you know, if even though Trump is president, I still do have to every now and then step back and say to myself, this actually isn't the most important thing in the world. Like this stupid internecine argument that somebody wants to have with me online, and so I get people who fall into that trap because it's an extremely annoying, obnoxious place in the internet right now, and it's gonna get way worse, I think, in the upcoming election season too. God. Can you even imagine what it's gonna be like? During the primary season. Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking about doing like remember that South Park episode where Cartman froze himself in order to try to get because he was waiting for a toy to be released. So he wanted to cryogenically freeze. But he ended up waking up 500 years into the future. That's what I want to do. I want to go like dive into a snowbank and wait until 2020 is over.
Just hibernate.
Yeah.
I remember I never was a big South Park fan, and then when I studied studied abroad in the Middle East, and I got addicted to South Park, and I think it was totally like, I miss America so much, and this is so fucking obnoxious that this is gonna do the trick. Let's watch Dog the Bounty Hunter get bummed about California getting rid of cash bail. It's going to overlap.
This is awesome.
Check it out. He's on Fox and Friends with the Brain Trust.
I think it's I've done this 40 years, and I know that without a deterrent, what is that thing you told me last night about?
It's called a moral hazard. Okay, when bad people do bad things, and there's no punishment for bad things, they're going to behave bad. And so what we've done is we've taken the accountability and responsibility out of crime. Crime isn't going down. We're decriminalizing crime. But what's worse is that victims are being disregarded right and left. In California, if no one has to post bail, these guys are going to get out of jail before the victim's even released from the hospital.
Matt? It's a little thing called moral hazard.
What was that thing you were telling me about last night?
Who's it?
What was that thing that I probably should have heard about when I became an adult the first time?
And I got into the bounty hunting.
Moral hazard? Moral hazard? You're blowing my mind, babe.
Wait, that was when I was like literally tracking humans at a profession that has its roots in the slavery era.
Moral hazard. I mean, that phrase is not to go back to the crisis period, but that was a huge part of that argument too, is the because Wall Street, because people started talking about, hey, maybe we should spend some of this money keeping people out of foreclosure and stuff like that.
Moral hazard.
Moral hazard, right?
Matt, what was that phrase you were telling me about last night?
Moral hazard.
Moral hazard?
It's called inflation.
Oh, yeah. You want to be like in Zimbabwe, where they propped up the Harare housing market? Bullshit.
Yeah, my favorite thing from that was Warren Buffett's partner, Charlie Munger. And they brought that up. They brought up moral hazard with him. And he said that people who couldn't pay off their houses should just suck it in and cope.
That's nice.
Billionaire Charlie Munger. But yeah, gotta love Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Didn't he get?
I don't like Doug.
Something?
I think he used
he
used the N word in some tapes. Oh, I didn't know about that.
Can you be a bounty hunter after you've been arrested?
And use the N word? Yes. Yes, you can.
I think that's probably on the bounty hunter license exam.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Absolutely.
You have to be able to use 14 different permutations of it. Use the N-word 11 times in this paragraph.
I used to confuse him and Hulk Hogan.
Oh, his sons, there's legal issues and the sons sort of are estranged.
Aw. That creates some moral hazard. All right. Let's, well, you know what? We're going to do let me just do a handful of Discord questions, and then we're going to get to the main event here. Well, I mean, this is all the main event, but we got to get to this Thomas Friedman stuff. We're not going to backload that. It's too important. All right. Question from Nam Daynet. Toronto is going through a municipal election, and there is a first-time school board trustee candidate that is the scion, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Sure, yeah.
Of a political family. He had his photo taken with a mayoral candidate that's consistently polling at 6% as third candidate and is a self-described white nationalist. Is there any use in harassing him for that on social media? Matt, this sounds like this is up your alley, Matt. This is
I don't know.
Regulate with Matt Leck. Matt Leck.
Oh, Matt. Oh,
well,
I see.
Leck hangs out on Twitter.
What office is he running for?
Looks like school board. I would say probably yes, potentially.
Yeah, especially if he responds. I mean, if he never responds, you're probably wasting your time. But if you can use up his time, yeah, fuck with him.
Matt Taibbi, are you familiar with Steve Kane? He's an Australian economist. And, okay, no. None of us are. I'll follow up on that. Sorry. Okay. Attorney Andrew. Correction from Mike. I hate to be actually, but the court in Bush v. Gore didn't say the recount would violate Bush's 14th Amendment rights. Rather, the opinion was dumber than that. They said, 1, voting is important. 2, making sure every vote count is the same as required by the 14th Amendment. 3, counties across Florida appear to be using different standards for counting as hanging chads, etc. 4, because Gore only asked to recount certain counties.
Right.
He's asking the subject the votes in those counties to different standards than other counties. 5, therefore all recount must stop.
Yeah.
That is actually even more insane than the initial stupid thing. That's incredible.
It's still an equal protection argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah. Did
No,
read that
it's
book
still
by,
an equal protection argument. Attorney Andrew. Yeah.
the Vincent Bugliosi book about that. You know, the guy who wrote Helter Skelter. Yeah.
No, I want to read that.
Yeah. No, he's a former DA from LA, and he wrote a whole book about the the Bush v. Gore case, and it's awesome.
We're
Great
going to
book.
do illicit history of Bush v. Gore soon. That's definitely coming up on TMBS. Matt and Mike, excluding U.S. banks, are $6.3 trillion in debt. I don't understand what you mean, excluding U.S. banks. Prediction, and what bubble causes the next recession? That's a good type of question.
So I get this question a lot, and I actually live in a building that has a lot of sort of finance professionals in it, and every now and then they stop me in the hall and they're like, "Dude, this shit is happening again." Like, you know, and you know if there's
Stay
a funny
on
if you
Patreon,
if you
don't worry
look online, you'll find that like Mike Milken last year gave a speech where he was talking about how this is the golden age of private equity, which is like the business for like the Gordon Gekko business of like takeovers, because he starts talking about this thing called covenant-free loans, which is
It sounds bad.
yeah. So this is basically what happened with mortgages back before 2008. They just stopped attaching a lot of the conditions to taking out mortgages. It used to be like if you took out a mortgage, you had to meet all these different parameters, right?
Right.
So they're doing that now with commercial loans, like to businesses, and basically exactly the same process. It's just incredibly easy to get financing.
So now they're potentially
bundling
even
it.
more fragile.
Right. Yeah.
It's
exactly.
even more concentrated.
And if you look at the amount of corporate debt right now, it's pretty much exactly the same as it was pre-2008. So a lot of people are worried about that.
So the bottom line
CLO is collateralized loan obligations.
Collateralized loan obligations.
Mm-hmm.
Sound just familiar enough for me to be comfortable about it.
You know what? Let's speaking of which, let's play Trump at the UN today, just as a button
That
on the
sounds
fact
fun.
that we're about to have another economic crisis. But that's how it works. It's like if there's another economic crisis, either that means that Donald Trump is going to be president, which is fucking inconceivable, or, you know, fucking Jesus Christ. All right, look, let's just play this.
The people should look out for when it cuts to the wide shot. It really looks like it's a movie, and they did some green screen stuff to make it look like Trump was president.
Yeah, it does. It looks like
that's what's been happening. That's our reality.
Yeah.
Today I stand before the United Nations General Assembly to share the extraordinary progress we've made. In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
It's all with, not at. All with, not at. We're all laughing together.
God, easy crowd to hear.
Wow, look at this. Loose crowd in Midtown.
So
Have you seen Man with Two Brains? Steve Martin movie?
I gotta
No?
watch that.
All right,
That sounds good.
Yeah.
He said, I like that. That's like Trump. Do you know what the other thing I thought? I don't know. Did you see the tweet from like a month ago? No, 2 weeks ago or so. He finally is like he upped his game for once. He's been so, and he was like, heard John Kerry's considering running for president. I should be so lucky. Period. And then he keeps going, and he's just like, however, 2020 Democratic field starting to look pretty strong, or starting to look pretty good. ... For me.
You see what he did there?
He's like, no, those are the ones where I'm like, what the fuck is the matter with me? Like, because I'm just like, all right, you know what? Even today, I still got to give it up.
No,
That's hysterical.
I had a lot of moments on the campaign trail where I was following the guy where I'd be like, he's completely insane, but that was kind of funny, actually.
Just like, for me, like that's such a like. I remember one time when I was like at summer camp or something when I was a kid, and I don't know, I don't even remember. Like we threw water balloons, but like something dumb, but we had to like write an apology. And I remember like my big thing, like this is genius, was I wrote like not in the margin of the page. Like, I'm sorry.
Not
Bart Simpson.
It's just like that's what I was just like, yeah, that to me, like when I was 11, that was like the pinnacle of comedy. And now every day I see Trump, it's always like, not.
I mean, the thing about
I'm sorry for being racist. Not.
You could go to a reasonably good open mic in New York, and Trump would be better than any of the stand-ups.
Oh,
filling
like
15
by
minutes.
far, probably just purely based off of insult crowd work. Oh, that would actually be great. I would if you went to like Williamsburg and he was like, yeah, so Subway's tough, you know, and he just gets up and he's like, look at this guy in the wool shawl. What are you from Peru? This guy's from Peru. Doesn't make any sense. Does that get itchy?
You can really imagine him hosting the night, like coming out in between comics. Okay, I guess next time we got this.
Yeah. but practice makes perfect, or does it? But anyways,
Remember the time that he was in Manchester, and the woman in the crowd shouted out that Ted Cruz was a pussy?
that was amazing.
I remember,
And how he responded to that.
I remember watching that, and
Should I say it?
he's like, because he looks at her, he looks at the cameras, and you can see like the one gear in his
The
head,
wheels.
like if I don't say anything, it's a story for half a day. If I repeat it, it's a story for 4 days. Right? You know?
If I repeat it.
That's gonna be like 8 column inches.
Yes, Ted Cruz. Serious question. Well, what do you think of waterboarding? Is it okay? And honestly, I thought he'd say absolutely, and he didn't. He said, well, it's, you know, he's concerned about the answer because some people, she just said a terrible thing. You know what she said? Shout it out because I don't want to. Okay, you're not allowed to say, and I never expect to hear that from you again. She said, I never expect to hear that from you again. She said he's a pussy. That's Tara. Tara.
No, that was genius though, because he even did like he's like in avuncular grandpa mode there too.
Yeah,
He's all just like, the kids these days.
Well, saying like pointing out a rule and then immediately breaking it, I think, is sort of the Trump.
No, that's very fun.
There was a professor in Texas, a linguist, who actually wrote to me after I wrote about that and told me that what kind of trope this is rhetorically. It's called a paralipsis.
That's amazing.
Pointing out something by not pointing it out. In other words, like, you're not allowed to say Ted Cruz is a you know what I mean?
And there's a lot of things you can't say about Ted's wife or his dad killing JFK.
Don't think about an elephant and what Ted Cruz's dad is doing in New Orleans.
Don't think about an elephant or contrasting photos of my wife with Ted's wife. There was the one he did it wasn't as good, but it was like last year, and it was so, by his standards, completely innocuous. But he's reading some statement somewhere about presidential privileges, and he's like, what he has the right to do, and he pauses and he's just like, should be he or she. He or she. And then he's just and then he's like, but not she for at least another 7 years, which I also love this double subtext of like shivving Mike Pence. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, obviously it's not gonna be this fucking guy.
He's just winging it.
It's like the only thing about Trump is like if Ted Cruz was president doing all this, he would give nothing back. It would be like, on top of this, we actually have to look at Ted Cruz. Like,
right.
At least Donald Trump gives us he's like, yeah, I'm going to destroy everything, and I'm this grotesque monstrosity of every single horrible trend in humanity. But I'm funny at times.
No, I mean, he's the ultimate American, right? Like, right? I mean, like,
yeah, you're
no
right.
other world leader would embraced the idea of like not studying for the ultimate test, which is like the presidency, right? Like he literally didn't study for running for president. That takes, I mean,
yeah, I would
not an insignificant act.
If all of a sudden, if you were thrown into it, you would, even on basic stuff, be like double checking yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the capital of Indonesia? Like, I would worry about stuff like that, you know. And he just didn't give a fuck at all. Like you have to.
Does not care. Cares about all of the wrong things.
Right. Exactly.
And is aggressively indifferent to anything that might matter.
Right. I mean, there's something about that that's a monument to something. I mean, it's negative, but
this could describe our next guest, our next segment. We're talking about Thomas Friedman. It's a monument to something, something negative. All right, Matt, would you lead us off? We're going to scroll this, have this on screen. This is a piece that we started last time. We didn't go far enough through. It's Saudi Arabia's spring at last. The Crown Prince has big plans for his society. I'm going to kind of, this is from November 23rd, 2017.
So last spring was the spring.
Yeah. Okay.
Boy, was that great.
Yeah, that was So I'm going to just throw the keys to you on this. And maybe, we'll work through this together, but maybe you could, just give us just read us a couple of graphs here and give us your thoughts. I don't think it's going to take us that long to get to the heart of the matter.
First of all, I mean, I think the anticipation with any Thomas Friedman column is what's the lead going to be, right? Because, like, with any Friedman column, there's always a promise that comes with the opening lead sentence, which is, I'm going to give you an image, and by the time you get to the end of the column, that image is going to be mangled so severely that you're not going to recognize it anymore. So that's where I start when I start reading a Friedman column. Is he going to give me an image?
Is he going to give me an image?
All right, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. There's always a dateline and with Friedman because he wants to tell you like what exciting hotel he's staying in.
I was going to say because for me. That's the image.
It's like a Jason Bourne movie,
right? No, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
I consider. I was going to ask if I'm cheating, because to me, like Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, like, that's the image, right?
Right? Yeah,
He's
exactly.
in Riyadh.
I mean, I could do that. I could just say my apartment. But with him, it's always Riyadh or whatever.
Right.
Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Dash. I never thought I'd live long enough to write this sentence. The most significant reform process underway anywhere in the Middle East today is in Saudi Arabia. Yes, you read that right. Though I came here at the start of Saudi winter, I found the country going through its own Arab Spring, Saudi style.
That whole "yes, you read that right" gambit is something I feel like high school editors would be like, you could just take that out.
That did seem like something very early, even for those of us who don't write as well as we would like. That was definitely something that you could have gotten rid of pretty early in the game.
I totally disagree, because that's a classic Friedmanism. Friedman's whole literary style is, I'm the guy you met at the airport bar who's got his arm around you, telling you what's what. While you're waiting for your flight to Riyadh. And so there's always
liquored up for your flight to Iraq.
Yeah, exactly. So there always has to be this line in there like, let's you and me go down, the avenue of truth and discuss some things.
The
right?
fairway of truth.
Yeah, exactly. But
no, he's the epitome of fairway. I mean,
oh my God, yeah, exactly.
His platonic form of fairway.
Yeah, and he's the mathematical perfect mean of that. Yeah, but also I love the so he's got the figure of speech in there it's winter but it's spring, right?
Right, of course.
That's pretty basic for him. I mean, it's not like an upside down zebra with no steering wheel.
I'm sorry.
All right. Unlike,
I'm sorry. sorry to interject. I just always remember.
Is that a real one?
That line, the line you wrote. It's not zebra. You have to say if that was, but that one that you wrote where you're like the concept for the book, "The World is Flat," is like Friedman's hanging out with some like Indian CEO, and the Indian CEO is just like, "The world's getting flat, Tom. Yeah, like whatever, get the fuck out." And then like just throws off like the most basic cursory like Davos pamphlet, like whatever about globalization, and then Friedman gets in the car, is just like, flat. The world's getting flat. Just like works himself into a lather.
It was even dumber than that, because what the guy, it was Nindan Nilikani,
right,
the CEO of Emphasis, who told me, he said, Tom, the playing field's getting more leveled.
Wait, that's how the world is flat?
Yeah. So Friedman goes off and like level and flat are two totally different concepts, right?
Yes.
Like one's qualitative, one is like right. And he goes off and he's like leveled. He's saying the world is flat, and then so that's fucked. And then the other thing that was fucked about it was the whole metaphor was flatness means the world is more interconnected. Except the flat Earth is less interconnected than a round Earth. Right? Because you're... I mean, it's just awesome. Like like an ordinary bad writer...
I'm homeschooled, for Christ's sake, and I understand that.
Right? I mean, you have to... You have to work hard to come up with something like that. Anyway.
No, it's anti-genius. All right, yeah.
Right,
That's amazing. All
right. Unlike the other Arab Springs... all of which emerged bottom up and failed miserably, except in Tunisia. This one is led from the top down by the country's 32-year-old crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman. And, if it succeeds, it will not only change the character of Saudi Arabia, but the tone and tenor of Islam across the globe. Only a fool would predict its success, but only a fool would not root for it.
You know what I like about that line from Friedman is that that's his version of like dipset. Like he thinks he fucking nailed that.
It's like Salieri. Oh, thank you. Gracias, senor. Right? He's thanking God for the insight.
Can really turn a phrase.
Yeah. Right. Literally.
I mean, I feel bad.
Really?
I mean, I do a little bit.
Isn't he married to some billionaire?
He is. He's married to a shopping mall heiress.
Right. Oh my God, the he's in addition to this, he's rich off of like fucking.
Have you seen his house?
I have seen the house in Bethesda.
Yeah,
I've seen an aerial shot of that.
You can see it from space.
And and he married into a family that got rich off of like dollar store outlets.
Right. Yeah. And
fuck
like
him. Don't feel bad for him.
Murdering rainforest in Hawaii to make strip malls and that kind of thing.
Right. Also, he could harass like the guy. Oh my God, this is the house.
Look at that. That's great.
That is beautiful.
Looks like Kid Rock's house.
That wing on the left is entirely for his mustache upkeep. That's pretty cool. I mean, look, would any of us be lying if we? I mean,
I will write.
I'm jealous.
I will write those columns for that house if that's what you're asking.
Right? Yeah,
absolutely.
I would write.
Yeah.
What a strange existence that would be.
That is true.
Did Alex ever tell you about what we did at Racket?
Maybe.
No, so we actually hired an Indian factory to create Thomas Friedman columns for us. This was Alex's idea. We sent them samples and told them like we would give them themes. And basically the whole idea is like we were going to prove all of his globalization theories true by showing that we could create 1,000 Friedman columns a day for like a fraction of the price. I was really skeptical, but Alex ended up coming up with all these they were pretty good.
I bet it worked.
Yeah, like people who were writing that stuff, they really Put a lot of work into it.
Or not.
It turns out that's what Friedman's been doing.
Yo, if in addition to everything else, Thomas Friedman has been 4-hour work weeking it, he deserves all of our completely unmitigated respect. Okay? He's like, first, I hustled my way into a Times column, which apparently has no editorial oversight.
Right.
Then I married a billionaire heiress, and then I outsourced my column to India. Then we would all have to just sit back in complete and utter respect.
What was his Pulitzer for?
He's got 3 of them, hasn't he?
Oh,
I don't know.
This might be an old website.
The thing that I've heard, didn't he write like a book in the 80s that was supposedly like a serious book about the Middle East or something?
Yeah, when he was a reporter in the Middle East. But I think he's won for commentary, right?
I'm sure he's won for commentary.
So he did win one in '83 for international reporting from Lebanon, and '88 for international reporting from Israel, and he won one in 2002 for commentary.
Right. That was when he was at the height of his powers.
That was when he said we need to invade Iraq to send them a suck on this message.
Suck on this.
That's what the Pulitzer was for?
Yeah, that was the Pulitzer. It was like, oh, it's a combination of worldliness and tough-mindedness. That was unparalleled in the...
We have to find that column where he talked about how you have to, sometimes when you're driving a car, you just have to throw the steering wheel out the window. That was his metaphor for Iraq. I forget exactly where he went.
What the fuck?
Did you find it? Chicken a la Iraq, right?
Okay, you know what? Then we might have to
Yes,
go back
I
in
love
time
this
here.
column.
All right, you know what? Bang through this.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to start from the Matt?
Yeah,
to successfully in dealing with Iraq. To be successful in dealing with Iraq, President Bush has to tread the most unusual line can imagine for a statesman. He has to be wild, but not crazy. How so? Well, it all goes back to a well-known concept in strategic theory: how to win a game of chicken between two drivers barreling head on to one another. If you're one of the drivers, the best way to win is before the race even starts, to take out a screwdriver and very visibly unscrew your steering wheel and throw it out the window.
Where did he learn this?
The message, you don't know what's called chicken. The message the other driver is, hey, I'd love to chicken out and get out of your way, but I just threw my steering wheel away. So unless you want to crash head on, you better get out of my way.
That's a brilliant strategy.
Or could you just like not really move and then the other guy could hit you whatever way he wants? We are witnessing. Actually, this really caps it off. And then I'll go to you. But I love. Okay, just bear in mind what you just read. You're right. We are witnessing a similar situation between President Bush and Saddam Hussein. No, you're not. I think we can all safely say, no, you're not.
Yeah. So. Wait, does he go on? Does he go somewhere with that metaphor? Because if I remember correctly,
Mr. Bush has to appear wild, even as if he had thrown out America's steering wheel and was ready to invade Iraq tomorrow alone. It was a very smart tactic, and if it produces a serious united international front, it may yet pressure Saddam into chickening out and allowing unconditional inspections. This still goes on another paragraph?
Right.
He's still doing this?
Yeah, like it goes on and on and on. It's amazing. Let's see. Wait. Go down to the bottom. I want to see what happens at the bottom.
Okay, yeah. We'll get right to the payoff.
Let's see.
Okay, you want to read?
Yeah, it's okay to throw out your steering wheel as long as you remember you're driving without one. It's okay to be wild to spur our allies to join us. But if they won't, we must not go from wild to crazy and invade Iraq alone, because the folks in the Middle East do crazy so much better than we do.
That's an awesome button.
Like, okay, first of all, the metaphor makes no sense. You can't, it's not okay to drive a car
Even if you acknowledge that I don't have a steering wheel.
right.
I would just like to say, before I do this, that I don't have a steering wheel. All right, let's get on the road.
We're good now.
We're good. It's been acknowledged. Now let's take this for a spin.
So that's wrong. And then he's basically saying, in the next sentence, actually, we do need a steering wheel in case our allies don't join us. And then in the last sentence, he's saying the other guys are better at not having a steering wheel than we are.
Yeah, because Arabs are crazy. I like that. So it's like, let's just end this fucking nonsense. Just a little note of racism.
I mean, I feel like I've had my fill of strategy for the night.
I mean,
I'm gonna renegotiate. I'm gonna read this before I negotiate another contract with Sam.
It's fantastic. That whole period with him was like every single column that he wrote was like that. It had some like crazy image, like, you know, America is just like a pagoda. You know,
America's like a pagoda. What? So now this column we got is basically just like it's disgusting because it's shilling for the Saudi monarchy, but we don't have the same kind of like MBS is like a Lotus Pro from which I type this column, right? That type of thing.
Yeah, no, he's toned down some of his literary instincts.
Do you think you'd share some of the blame for that, Matt? You think you mocked the guy?
It's not just me. I mean, there's a whole like cottage industry of Freedmania. I mean, like, there's somebody who actually built a Friedman simulator online. Have you seen that thing?
Of course I have. Yeah, I don't know if it's still around, but it's still. I mean, but I remember there was a time like in college where people would still say like, "Did you read Friedman?" And I would just hit them back with one of your reviews. That's all. My only response to everything would just be like, "Why don't you read this review? The world's flat." These are my thoughts on Thomas Friedman.
The funny thing about that is that I actually didn't even notice
Luxembourg and Zimbabwe. Luxembourg and Zimbabwe.
Crossing the aisle.
Well,
what's the lead?
An interesting thought concept occurred to me today. What if industrial giants sat down with ordinary people like you and me and ironed out some of the real solutions to our education crisis? That's not even.
Wait, are these real?
Yeah, that's not a. Yeah, that has to be real.
No, that's not real. That's fake. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is that let's you and me sit down and iron out some things, right? Yeah.
Except it should be industrial giants. Go big, Mr. Obama. What's this one? Imagine if grassroots activists sat down with ordinary people like you and me and ironed out some real solutions to our prescription drug crisis.
Wait, Matt, can you find the one? I think he wrote a thing called.
Wait, I'm sorry. Portugal, the next India, or the next Pakistan? Question mark.
I have to find out which one it's going to be.
Right. That's impressive.
So there's one where it's an Iraq column and the metaphor is like a long bomb or a Hail Mary or something like that. But it goes from like being a football metaphor to something else. It's like another sport or something.
He switches sports.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he changed horses midstream. You know that whole the long bomb. Here we go. This is a good one.
All right. Let's do this.
What happens here? All right. Do you want to read it?
No, either way. You want? Okay. Where are we starting?
Let's see. Let's find the football metaphor here.
Okay. Yeah, you could just do a word search for it.
I think it's just in the middle there, where the long bomb. Wait.
I like the I have a mixed marriage. My wife opposes this war. That was one thing I caught.
It's right after the word audacious. Mr. Bush's audacious something.
Mr. Bush's audacious shake of the dice appeals to me. He summed it up well in his speech last week. A liberated Iraq can show us power, freedom to transform that vital region by bringing hope.
Oh, wait.
Progress,
I'm sorry.
blah, blah.
I screwed up. I'm sorry. He has been convinced by a tiny group of advisors that throwing, quote, the long bomb, attempting to transform the most dangerous Arab state,
is a geopolitical game changer.
And then it's blah, 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 blah. And then it's dice he's throwing.
I
see. Next, right? And then, like, are we throwing dice down the football field? Like,
we're throwing dice down the football
and
field in the global economy.
Is it Iraq? Are the dice Iraq? Or, like... See, the thing about
I guess, like,
is,
troops whose limbs are going to be blown off and he has no connection to whatsoever.
This stuff is all fantastic, though. I mean, it's like...
Imagine if this column was being written in response, like, during Vietnam, and like, John Kerry's like, how do you ask the last man to be the one to die for a mistake? And it's like, well, it's true, but on the other hand, like, Johnson's throwing...
He's got an audacious plan.
Yeah, he's got an audacious plan. And
He's
his
taking the
zone
steering
D
wheel out of the
might
car.
work, which is why I find his concept of, like, holding his hand appealing. It's just like...
He's going to wind up and throw those dice as far as he can. The funny thing about this stuff is that you could teach this not as political commentary, but, like, basically any English composition teacher would tell you that, like, if you have if you have a metaphor in paragraph A, like in paragraph B, if like the metaphor in paragraph A is like a Atlas holding up the Earth, in paragraph B, he can't be like Father Christmas. You know what I mean? Like, it has to continue being Atlas. Otherwise, somebody's holding the you know what I mean?
I'm
like,
drawn to the Atlas and look forward to him coming down the chimney. Right. However, but maybe he's like fucking Picasso, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he's just like reinventing the rules. All right, we're going to take 2 quick calls, and then we do have to wrap things up. But hopefully, Matt will be back sooner than later, which would be great. Next, actually, it would be fun. I definitely want to talk about drug dealing in business. I'm very much so. You're calling from a 330 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Michael, it's Ryan from Ohio.
Ryan, how are you doing? Good to hear from you.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Firstly, I think you guys are forgetting the best opener to a Thomas Friedman column. I think it started, Dear Penthouse, I never thought it would happen to me. I leaned down and told her to suck on this. But no, I'm sure you, I don't know if you remember when a friend of the show, Matt Bender, interviewed Caitlin Bennett from Kent State University, the Kent State gun girl.
Oh, okay. Yes, I know who she is. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, she's having a rally on Kent campus this Saturday.
You going to stop by and say hi?
Of course. But it's fun because a group called the American Guard is going to be attending, and they're white nationalists. So we got white nationalists with gun on Kent campus. A campus with a history of guns not ending well.
Jesus.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Jesus. Are you a student
Good
there?
Stuff.
Are you a student at Kent State?
No, my little sister is though.
Yeah.
Yikes.
What is she?
So,
what's she gonna do during this time? What are her plans?
Well, I'm having her make a sign with a diaper joke.
Oh, was Kent State where they did the diaper thing? Yeah. Jesus.
Oh yeah, it was.
She's
Caitlin
not
Bennett
Turning Points,
that,
but still
signed up on it.
Jesus Christ. All right, man. Well, call in next week if you can. I'm praying, obviously, that you'll just call in and be like, yeah, it was fucking weird, versus something happens that makes news.
Well, I'll tell you what, like, if my name is in the news, you have to dedicate every episode of your show to me from now until the end of time, so.
It seems like I think you're throwing a long bomb there.
Hey, I threw the dice and I tried to see if they, came up aces.
Exactly.
Thanks for the call, brother.
You know, it's funny that the Thomas Friedman porn angle. Like, I actually did a contest once online, like, come up with the best Thomas Friedman porn title, and I got like thousands of entries, right? Like, and it was come with the best title for porn themed title for a Thomas Friedman column. People wrote in all kinds of stuff like the next 6 inches are critical, hot, flat, and shrouded. And Thomas Friedman himself, his next column was called "This Ain't Yogurt." We had to give the prize to him.
Yeah, right. I was going to say. I think somebody clearly won. I wish Freeman was like, it would be so great if he was just like the villain asshole that you knew he was, but there was like 1% of him that was like cool enough to be like, I'll tell you was that fucking. But I don't think so. I don't think he's that guy.
Yeah, probably not. And even if he was, it wouldn't be all right because I don't know.
No, of course it wouldn't be all right. Yeah. And nothing could make that record all right. But yeah, I mean, see let's see, 2 more quick questions from the Discord. 1 more call. Let's see. What if centrist Democrat Hitler won World War II? I'll take that up later. That was a character on the Majority Report. We got a very weird call where a guy was like, I don't care. I'm voting for Democrats, all right? I don't care. If Hitler's a Democrat, I'd vote for him. And Cynthia Nixon, that's ridiculous. She had no experience. And then I, being my obnoxious self, immediately was just like, I have Cynthia and I are going to the same places, but one of us has leadership capacity. I'm not an actress.
Centrist
I have
Democrat
governance.
Hitler.
Yeah.
That is a really funny concept.
Donald Trump is totally dishonoring our politics by his conduct on Twitter. That would be funny. You just make him Rick Wilson instead of like, America's awesome. Donald Trump's ruining.
Donald Trump is a douche nozzle.
Yeah. What a jerk. Hey, Cheeto head. Why do people want to become fascists? Because it's awesome. He's not even a real fascist. He's not a real Nazi. He has no honor. Well, I miss Kofifi Annan. I like that. We did I don't even know how we manipulated that one, but just the idea. We did a retrospective on Kofi Annan, and it was like the guy who could like stay cool and attempt to do diplomacy with Bush, with Omar al-Bashir, with Saddam Hussein, and nothing. Like, it's always just like, we are conducting diplomacy in the hope that, and then just like all of a sudden, like Andre, he's just like, you are a fake president. Why don't you suck Putin's dick some more?
That was entirely based on Kofifi and
Oh, right, the Kofifi thing. I don't even remember. I can't keep track of all this shit. What does right-wing Mandela think? We are aware of his opinions of Sam Cedar, Dave Rubin, but what of Michael Brooks? Is he a degenerate soy boy or a good fucking guy? I think right-wing Mandela would probably rate me 50-50.
Who's
somewhere
right?
in there? Yeah,
the Michael character.
It was, what if right-wing? What if Nelson Mandela was? What if he was like, Matt Taibbi's a fucking cock?
I like right.
Maybe you should stop blaming the financial crisis on people who understand how the economy works. It is the politics of resentment. Dick Ford was saying this.
Nelson Mandela talking up the yield curve would be hilarious.
It was the style guide. It was Rick Santorum on the day Mandela died compared the struggle against the ACA to Mandela's, so it was like, Rick is quite right.
You don't see the comparison?
Yeah, right. We were fighting. We want to Robben Island so that there wasn't a subsidized buy-in on the internet market. Exactly. Will there be a fascist candidate wins in Brazil? What would the implications have for our relations with that country? Well, very good for the financial community who is leaning towards him because he has all of these Chicago boy advisors. But I really think if there isn't a military coup, I think Haddad is going to win. And I mean, the fact that Lula is literally orchestrating an election win without any access to the press and being in prison for 5 months is pretty fucking impressive. And like literally not allowed to speak to the press. And he lit a letter to the Brazilian people and was like, vote for this guy. And the guy's numbers are just like on a massive, it's pretty impressive. All right. You're calling from a 773 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
This be Uchiwali, man.
Uchiwali. How you doing?
Better than
Shebang.
last week.
Got you.
I'm glad I got on. I got two things to talk about real quick.
Yes.
And first of all, I'll cover this really quick. Today I got in the mail my Skeptic magazine with Jordan Peterson article in it.
Michael Shermer, thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael Shermer.
Yeah, he wrote one of the 3 articles. None of them are blowjobs. They are not very critical of him, however. I haven't had a chance, go into detail read, but I had a good hour to breeze over them. Only the third one. The first one is Michael Shermer's. He says he's not out to debunk him, and it's not a fluff piece. It's not too positive. He just talks about him. The second one's just a page long. He talks about that his 12 rules of whatever are all okay and check out scientifically, so not a big deal. And the third one, which is the longest one,
okay, they check out
the one that
scientifically.
did have one cringe-worthy thing I'll point out. He seems to dismiss all of the negative articles on the internet about him as just being too mean.
Totally.
And sort of flirts with criticizing, but doesn't really get there. You might want to check it out.
Negative.
It's not the greatest article on him, but I just thought I'd mention that. But the other thing is I moved to New York as a result of joining a trading firm, a really big one. And as part of their onboarding, I think Matt Taibbi may find this interesting. They want me to give a talk about something of my choice. And so being a left-wing asshole, I was wondering, I have some ideas of my own, but what you guys thought I could do, to tell everybody, just that maybe I'm an asshole that's not afraid of getting fired.
Well, I definitely don't feel comfortable encouraging you to get fired. I'm sure Matt Taibbi, though, is totally into that idea.
What kind of trading firm is it? Can you...
He needs more.
It's a big equity, some high speed, proprietary, no public investment.
So, but you doing high speed trading?
Yeah, there's some high speed. Everybody dabbles in that a little bit these days.
That's kind of awesome. But wait. Did you say it's also a private equity firm?
It's proprietary. There's no public investment.
Okay, all right.
You can't just put your retirement funds in it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. I feel bad advising you to commit career suicide in the first day. But what would you, if you had your, in your darkest fantasy, what would you give a speech about?
That's a good question.
Oh, well, my idea is basically I like Dean Baker. He's my favorite economist, and I like to point out that right-wing economic policies just don't work. How they always promise that we'll cut taxes and deregulate. Then we got George Bush got in office. First thing he did was cut taxes and deregulate, and we got the slowest economic performance since the end of World War II.
Do you think they might let you get away with that, though? They might be like,
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was just something a little bit more revolutionary we could come up with.
Oh well, I'm Mr. We're going to need to exit capitalism at some point. So
isn't Dean really into the idea that states, like public entities, should never ever hire Wall Street firms and should basically always just put all their investments in index funds and that the fees are completely wasted and
that's a standard economic advice these days. Even John Oliver does segments on that.
It's not even dangerous anymore, huh?
Yeah.
So nobody even pretends that there's any value add to the.
Well, I mean, I've just literally moved a month and a half ago, but I previously worked for a much bigger firm in Chicago. And I did get into it with those guys. I've got stories about being a liberal at that firm. But they were of the mind that they provided liquidity in the market. And
I love
so if you want to buy Acme stock, they're the people you're going to be buying and or selling it to. So they think that's a valuable service.
Yeah, I love the providing liquidity argument. That's always a good one.
Gotta have liquidity. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Lots of liquidity. And what about you hate the banks, but if there was no liquidity, then what would you do?
You should just wrap yourself in saran wrap and read a whole issue of Jacobin to them or something like that.
I'll actually get a subscription and browse through there for ideas.
That's also possible. Yeah.
One more thing before I go, though. It just occurred to me, speaking of Dean Baker, like I said, I'm a big fan of his. He disagrees with you guys that there's another financial collapse coming. He looks at the numbers and says that there's nothing big on the horizon. I tend to agree with him. He says that he sees a recession coming because we just tend to get one every decade or so, and we're due for one to start soon. But I just don't see. I like him. I just don't see economic collapse coming. There's no bubble big enough to burst that would cause what happened last time.
Right.
Student debt. I mean, I guess maybe that's
the dynamics there are a little different.
Yeah, dynamics there are a little different. Yeah. I don't know. What do people talk about? People talk about car debt. They talk about,
auto loans.
Yeah, auto loans. I don't know.
Credit card, student debt.
I'm actually someone. I'm kind of more on and I don't know definitely, obviously, as much as other people on this, but it seems to me that I'm more interested in just what is happening and getting reified in the economy, right? Instead of this next horizon of crisis, it's the inbuilding of. Yeah, we're just going to have, it's just going to be baked into the cake that most people are going to be completely financially ravaged. That, to me, if anything, that's just getting worse, regardless of economic performance. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
There is a big bubble out there, though. He does talk about the Canadian real estate market is about 40% bigger than it should ever be. So it's just not big enough to take the world economy down.
Right. Yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, there were people who were saying there was going to be a bubble with the Chinese real estate market a little while ago too, weren't they?
I heard correctly. That. But they have more. They have more macroeconomic mobility than we do. I think.
But people have been whispering about ever since what happened in 2008. It's just a pretty constant drumbeat of whispers that this or that is happening again. And I think their main reason for that is that we didn't correct a lot of the behaviors that led to the last problem. We basically all the same kinds of things that went on last time, like the bundling and pooling and securitizing of loans that way. We still do that. The companies are even more big and unwieldy than they were before. They periodically have accounting disasters where they don't even know how big their losses are, like the London whale incident with Chase.
Right.
And so the possibility that one of these companies has a really messed up balance sheet and we don't know about it, I guess that's a possibility that we're not
You know what's fucked up is the thing that I remember, the London whale thing was a really big thing, and the only thing I remember about it was the Al Sharpton impression on SNL where he was just like, "Has this whale been apprehended?" as he tried to read the teleprompter. That's the only thing I remember about that story. I know it was important.
Apprehended. How would you apprehend a whale?
And they said, "We want your tweets. Send them to," and then he gave a physical address for NBC. Uchiwali, come visit us soon.
Yeah, I don't know if you've got my number up on the screen. I'll send you another Patreon message tonight or tomorrow. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you. All right, everybody. I'm sorry. We'll get to people we missed next week. Appreciate all of you. Thanks a million, Matt Taibbi.
Thanks a lot, Michael.
Thanks, man. Thank you, Matt Leck. Thank you, David Griscom. Thank you, David Slavic. We will see you on Thursday, Woke Bros. Sunday, Illicit History of Canadian Politics with Luke Savage. Thanks.